G'day everyone, Connor here from CW's Tech Reviews, back with another video. And tonight we're covering my OnePlus 5 full review. I'm going to go through everything that matters and I'm going to skip the things that don't matter as I cover my experience with the OnePlus 5. Let's get into it. The first thing I'm going to talk about today is the design of the OnePlus 5. It's really well made. We have an aluminium back and Gorilla Glass 5 on the front. Now yes, there's the obvious comments that it looks like the iPhone 7 Plus. I will say the camera part does, but the rest of it doesn't really. It just looks like its own device. In humid conditions, the aluminium is not slippery at all. You don't need a case, but in dry weather, the aluminium becomes really slippery. And that's when I would recommend wearing a case on it because, you know, it's going to drop, it's going to break. Definitely, it looks nice, it feels nice. It's that, you know, I'm used to the glass backs these days. And I'd have to say that it's nice to get my hands on this aluminium design. I'm really happy with it. Now you do have a 5.5 inch 1080p screen, and yes, there's bezels on it. But I'm not really too fussed about bezels as long as they're not overkill with massive foreheads and massive chins like the Pixel or the iPhone. I'm impressed. And for me, one of the key designs of the OnePlus 5 is this fingerprint scanner. I've got 4 digits set up on this for the fingerprints and it just seems to work every single time, not a problem. Doesn't matter which one I use, it unlocks straight away. So that is a win-win. Next on my list, I'm going to talk about the hardware. Now, a lot of people don't care about specs. You ask them what's in their phone and they don't know. They know they've got a good camera. Well, they know they've got a crap camera. They don't know what sort of a chipset they have. So take this with a grain of salt. However, we're going to touch on the specs and the hardware of this device. So for your chipset, you're looking at the Snapdragon 835. And this model also has the 6 gigs of RAM with a slate grey, but you can also get the 8 gigs of RAM model. I have not experienced any lag whatsoever with the 6 gig, so I don't know what the 8 gig's going to do. It's got an 8 core CPU and an Adreno 540 for the GPU. So plenty of horsepower in here to make it hum through many tasks. On the rear camera, you've got a 16 megapixel camera and a 20 megapixel telephoto lens. We'll get into that later. And on the front, you've got another 16 megapixel shooter for your selfies. Also comes with a 3.5mm headphone jack, NFC, Bluetooth 5.0, a single speaker and USB Type-C. So a real mix there of the latest and greatest with your USB Type-C and some of your older technology with the single speaker and the headphone jack. Next, I'm going to talk about the camera. And I would say that this might be one of the weaker points of the OnePlus 5. But it's not really one of the weaker points. It's one of the great points of the OnePlus 5. It's just not as good as your flagship. So this would be one of the areas where the OnePlus 5 is not a flagship killer. In many areas it is, but with the camera it's just not there. So you do have your 16 megapixel front facing camera, which shoots okay front facing pics. I mean, you hold the camera up and you snap it off and it looks pretty good. In the good lighting conditions it looks fantastic. The 16 megapixel does okay, and the rear facing camera is fantastic in really good lighting conditions. Now I don't have these uploaded onto a computer to look at. A lot of these photos I took and they're just saved on Google Photos, and that's where they're going to stay. So here are some sample shots I took with the OnePlus 5. I went out for a day trip into the city and I compared it to my S8 Plus, and for the most part they stacked up against each other. For the portrait mode on here, I really didn't see what all the fuss was about. I'd hold it, I'd tap on the subject I wanted to zoom in on, it'd give it the depth effect, and I'd get a photo with a blurry background. And in low light, that's when you start to see this camera start to fall apart when comparing it to your other flagships. So the grain starts to creep in and just your overall not good quality photos in those low light conditions. And here's the examples of that. You can see quite clearly that the OnePlus 5 doesn't have the best camera for low light. With the photos in auto mode, everything is in good detail, nothing's really too overexposed, and the pictures aren't overly saturated like some other manufacturers tend to lean towards. Now we're going to talk about the software. And this is one area where the OnePlus 5 is leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of other manufacturers when it comes to the software on their smartphones. Now, it's pretty close to stock Android, but with a bunch of minor tweaks in there that you would generally see in the custom ROM world. And it's really nice to see these features put in there. Yet, the software is trimmed down and nice and light. Pair that with your Snapdragon 835, your 6 gigs of RAM, you get a really fast and fluid experience with zero lag. It doesn't matter what app I open, bang, the app's open quicker than the Galaxy S8 Plus. I have done a speed comparison between the Galaxy S8 Plus and the OnePlus 5, so the two phones go toe to toe in this speed comparison. I'll put a link to that just up here for you all to watch. You can get a small amount of tweaks into the OnePlus 5 software, and that's talking about the gestures that you can do, or changing the nav bar settings, or even the shelf which you get if you scroll to the far left, which I'm not a fan of, but it is there. It is something you can tweak a little bit to your liking. I guess the best way to describe the software, it is fast, it is fluid, and it is efficient. I have to say, OnePlus 5, when it comes to software, you are above flagship level. You're killing it, absolutely killing it. It's currently running 7.1.1 as of this video and is on Oxygen OS 4.5.10. And together they all seem to be going along quite nicely. The one area where I've had a little bit of a problem is I love my fitness, I love riding my bike and doing running, and the GPS does seem a little bit out. Now, over 1 kilometre, it might not be far, but if you're running 5 or 10 or 15 kilometres, you start to get quite a big discrepancy in your actual running distance compared to what the GPS is telling you you've covered. Next on my list to discuss is the battery. Now, the battery on the OnePlus 5 is 3300 mAh, and I would get a full day's use out of it most days. There's one day where it ran down really close towards the end of the day, and that's because I was doing a lot of camera work and a lot of video recording, and it just seemed to wipe out the battery. But it did last longer than my S8 Plus. It didn't quite last as long as my iPhone 7, but I was happy with the output of the battery, and I put it through its paces, and I think the 1080p screen helps it get through the day as well as it did. And most times I got from waking up to going to sleep on one charge, and that's all I asked for. I don't want a battery to last me 2 days or a day and a half. I want it to last me 1 day, because I get home, I finish off my day, when I go to bed I charge my battery and I wake up and it's full. So it was enough for my needs. And where it shone was definitely in the charging of the battery, fast charging, and it was up and away. I mean, you know, I didn't really time it, but I just know that when I put it on charge and I'd go back to it in half an hour or 45 minutes, I'd have plenty of juice. Again, OnePlus 5, thumbs up for the battery charging, thumbs up for the life of the battery throughout the day. I'm happy with it. I think most people would get more than a day's worth out of it. Overall, I'm going to say that the OnePlus 5 is the best value for money you can get at this point in time. If you're looking for a bare bones Android device with top-notch features, then get the OnePlus 5. Don't muck around. That's my review of the OnePlus 5. Let me know in the comments below. Are you going to get this device? Have you already got this device? Would you not get this device? And give me your reasons why down below. I really appreciate you watching the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Check ya!